Good morning, my name is AJ and I'm alcoholic. I've experienced with our steps as they laid out in our book with the help of a sponsor who's done the same. I have completed my direct amends and I do live all of those amends and all 12 of our steps in my life each day. And I also remain willing for the next amends that comes available for me. I've noticed today that there's been a major edit in the big book. I don't know if you've had this experience, but there are times in my experience in recovery that I'll hear a reading or I'll be reading a paragraph myself and I'll experience a sentence or a phrase in a whole new way. And today's the March 11th. Is today the 11th? Yeah, so today's the Saturday in March that I'm sitting here in front of you in 2023. I think it's the 11th. I'm trusting you all. Yeah. So that I now have a whole new experience on step 10. And in step 10, what I've learned today is that we grow in understanding and effectiveness, that we must continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. And when they crop up, we must ask God to remove them at once. That sounds like an emergency warning. And then on it says that love and tolerance is our code, that we cease fighting, that sanity will have returned, that we will recoil from liquor as if it was a hot flame, that we are neither cocky nor afraid, and that there's no cure. And then the remaining paragraph insists upon determined, discerning, and committed work in maintaining a relationship with God. For real? Like, this is step 10. I'm supposed to feel better now. And I do. And as a summary statement, really what step 10 is for me is a summation of the previous 9 steps. So some of you may have heard me share in step 10 before. I was about 2 years sober, and I had the privilege of being somewhat subtly, without a pay raise, promoted in a role that I had at that time, and I was assigned a significant high-profile household name client with the consulting firm that I was working for, and I had an opportunity to shine in that moment. And being a great alcoholic for the ensuing months following that assignment, I was fully committed. And so fully committed as an alcoholic becomes fully committed that I created by choice a lack of balance in my life. So much so that there were no individual instruments of silverware available for me to consume any of my meals, and all of the dishes in all of the sets of dishes that I have, because I'm an Irish Catholic who grew up here in Worcester, so I have my dishes, the ones that I wanted, and then I have the ones that my mom didn't want, and then I have the ones that were my nana's that my mom didn't want, and then I also have those few other ones that I went to those charity events where, it's a spaghetti dinner and you pay an exorbitant amount of money for the spaghetti, there's no meatballs, and get to keep the plate. Yeah, and at that time in my life, I was a collector of functional pottery. So I have like 9 of those dishes too. But I want you to know, there was dishes. There was dishes. And what happened was that, the sink was full, and it's a big sink, and it's deep, and all that stuff. And, the kitchen smelled horrible. It smelled horrible. But I was busy. And what happened was, after 3 full bottles of Dawn and a lot of wasted hot water and all of that stuff, I realized that there was a dishwasher right next to the pile of dishes and silverware. And I also was getting bored with takeout, it had gone too long. So, begrudgingly and resentfully and angrily, I loaded the dishwasher, and at the bottom of the sink, this is where the metaphor starts. At the bottom of the sink, I found a dead mouse. So here's the thing. So I live in an old house. If you live in an old house, you get rent-free roommates. every single change of season. Here where I live, it's a super old house. There's a lot of free, open doors for them, and it says free lodging on a little sign written in mouse. I know it is because they come in and they're super excited to be there, and they party all night long. They wake me up and all that stuff. So I'm standing there and I'm looking at this dead mouse, and God entered into my thoughts. And in that moment, I realized that as I wasn't caring for my dishes and my own personal health, because I wasn't eating healthy for days and days and days and days and days, all of the faces of all of the important people in my life were flashing in front of me as well. I hadn't responded to all those text messages, and I hadn't responded to all those emails, because I was busy. I had a new client. And what dawned on me in that moment was the fact, the unadulterated, undisputable fact, that as an alcoholic in recovery, I have a responsibility on a daily basis to keep things in order. To keep things in order. Because as it says here in this book, my spiritual condition is my relationship with God. And for me, God shows up in you. And God shows up in all of the other people in my life. And was I being cocky? Yeah. Was I being afraid? Yeah. Was I scurrying about like one of those hungry mice? Yes. And was I on the path to a tragic demise, drowning in something that shouldn't have been happening? Yes. So, how do I manage that? How do I manage that? So for me, it begins with all of these somewhat unfun things initially. Let's be honest. I don't know about you, but okay. You don't need to be honest. I'm going to be honest. So I'm going to be honest. Ready? When I first read this, I was like, love and tolerance is our code. But what if? But what about? But do you know? But if you knew what they did to me, you would have. And then I tried this. I leaned into what I was hearing from you. I chose to practice forgiveness. I chose to practice honesty. I chose to practice communication in a way that love and tolerance was driving the conversation, yet I was still being honest, and I was still creating boundaries. I was still creating a life worth living for me, and helping you by communicating the reality that I wasn't communicating how to be my friend with you. I wasn't communicating with you what would work for me in support as a coworker or an employee. I was not going there. I wasn't stepping out onto the skinny branches. I wasn't leaning in. I wasn't taking risks because I was afraid. I was afraid. Now, there's no coincidence that I'm here telling you this today, and my entire fourth step is based in a lack of communication with others. I never said I didn't like the way you behaved. I just talked about how you behaved to others. I never asked you to behave in a different way. I just told my friends that they should behave in a different way. And then in your face, I'd be sweet and kind. Because I was driven by a lie that I was told as a young child that if I wasn't nice to you, I would have no friends. And based on how you behaved with other people, I was expected to care for you and love you because you were kind to them and you were a jerk to me. I'll never ever forget it. Never ever forget it. I was 1 year sober and I asked my best friend, I was 35 years old. I asked my best friend, who I'd been very, very, very close friends with since we were 6. I asked him to give me a minute or longer to get really clear on where my life was going, because I had chosen sobriety and I was practicing the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and his communication that sounded regularly like, when are you gonna come out and drink with me again? When are you gonna quit that damn program? You're boring. And I worked with my first sponsor and I said to him, you know, this is really important to me right now, and I'm gonna focus my attention on this because I really feel a lot better today. So right now, it feels to me like we can't be friends. And he was like, all right, whatever. And 8 years later, we saw each other. And I was 9 years sober and he was 5 years sober, and we reconnected over a very brief immense conversation. And, you know, now I'm the biggest fan of his son's, you know, at his hockey games. And I'm the number one person that he calls again. And we talk about how awesome life is sober. And he and my other best friends are constantly fighting as to, you know, like who I get to hang out with and why can't we all just hang out together? And we do. You know, and it's not like a fight, it's like, wait, come on, let's just all do it together, right? Because, you know, when I say, hey man, going out with Duncan, she says, well, why don't I meet you there? And I'm like, oh my God, that would be great. Because I have been friends with Duncan for 40 years and she just met him 2 months ago. It's just how it goes. You know, and it's big stuff like that, which is all my step 10 work, but it's also little stuff too. So I'm on it at work today in my life. I'm also on it in my personal life as well. And it's hard. It's hard. 3 weeks ago or so, I quit my job and tell my manager to go fuck herself. And I even planned the conversation with one of my confidants. And at the end of the conversation, they said, why don't you give it a couple of days? And you know, thank God for that person. Because this is what happened. The next day, the person, you know, I arrived in the office, because I work from home and I work going to the office once in a while. The next day was a day in the office, and that person came to me and said, can we talk about yesterday? And I said, alive in my 10-step work, I said, no, I'm not ready. Because I was still in, fuck you, I quit. But you know, that just didn't feel right in that moment. And living this principle and this statement, you know, it ends with that period. The love and tolerance of others is our code. And I realized in that moment that I was also being loving and tolerant of myself. Because I knew that I was super upset. So the event happened, the big event happened on Monday. On Tuesday, I said, no, I don't want to talk to you about it. And on Thursday, she asked me again. And we were on video, and I was in my house, and she was in her office, and, you know, we were quiet, and, you know, and I said, is your door closed? And she said, yeah. I said, this is not going to be an easy conversation. She said, I don't expect it to be, because I know, after having some time to think about it, that I wasn't all wrong in that conversation. And then she said, after I tell you exactly how much wrong I understand I was, I want to hear what it did to you and how I might make up for what I did to you that day. Now last week you heard instructions like that. In the previous step, we learn how to have that conversation. And here's a person that's not alcoholic who actually came to me and said, I have amends to make to you and I understand what I did, and now I want to hear what it did to you. And we had that conversation. And I went all the way. I chose to be honest rather than dishonest. I chose to be vulnerable instead of being cocky and afraid. I chose to express my passion for humans instead of being stuck in my fear of looking good. instead of being stuck in my fear of being liked. Because at the end of the day, after that conversation, I know that I still have permission, and I know that I still have the power to say, thank you very much for this conversation. I really appreciate your honesty. Please accept my resignation. Which is very, very different than FYIQ. And what I've learned in Alcoholics Anonymous by working these steps is that my EQ is more important than my IQ. Because it's my emotional intelligence that gives me the opportunity to be connected with God and to be plugged in and fully charged on God's strength. Because it says here, much has been already said. Much has already been said. I don't speak 1934, I apologize for that. Much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction from Him, who has all knowledge and power, if we have carefully followed the instructions. We have begun to sense the flow of His Spirit into us. To some extent, we've become God conscious. We have begun to develop this vital sixth sense. But we must go further, and that means more action. So, I don't know about you. And if this is your experience, I think it's awesome. I'd love to hear from you afterward that it is your experience. My experience is that having stepped into engaging a relationship with God, I today now feel like I'm not entirely a human in certain moments. I notice when God's energy, when God's strength, when patience is happening in me, I know it's not me. Because I don't have patience. I get pissed. That's my instinct. However, asking God for strength, asking God for the words, asking God for the power to do His will and not accommodate my selfish needs. And that's what my brain has been reprogrammed by virtue of these steps to understand. To ask God for His will, not accommodate my selfish needs. Not my will. That's what it means to me. And if you are a human that is not in this experience yet, I want you to know that this is one of the ways that's causing the people that are sitting near you that really are tiptoeing through the tulips. Those people that are simply dancing through life right now. Those people that you're looking at and you're like, how is it possible that someone could be that happy? She's 38 years sober. She's 18 years sober. She's 19 months sober. She's 5 months sober. Like, how is it possible that he with 8 months, 9 years, 22 weeks? How is it possible that they could be so happy? That June's been longer than I've been alive. How that June has been sober longer than I've been alive. How is it possible that they could be that happy? Well, in my experience, it's because they actively live our steps. And particularly, they're rigorous. And I know that I get feedback often that I love to hear. Positive, cheerful, neutral. Neutral. One of the most important promises of this step. Why are you upset, AJ? AJ, you should be more upset about this situation. And what's happening is, I'm not showing that I'm upset. No, I may be upset. And I may be channeling that energy with God's strength into making something new. Changing the situation. And through love and tolerance and respecting the fact that I must manage this on a daily basis and not expect to be anointed, cured, I found a life, as I said earlier, that's worth living. I've created an environment with my higher power where I have incredibly powerful human beings in my life, and I have individuals who are supportive and communicate openly, transparently, and rigorously with me. If you don't have a 10-step buddy yet, you don't have a person in your life that will say, hold on a minute, I think what you just said is a lie. If you don't have a human in your life that will say, hey, can you stop for a minute? What do you think they felt in that situation? What could you have done differently? I'm so grateful for those people in my life. And the last thing I'll say is this. If you don't have a sponsor who will sit you down and stare you straight in the face and say, you have a part in this at 5, 6, 7 years sober, we're going to focus on your part in this. Because the truth is, there are times in life when people are absolutely out of their freaking minds around us, and we have a part in it. And getting clear on what our part is our opportunity and the value of this step. So thank you for being here. For those of you who have been here as long as I've been here, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you're here because you've given me the benefit and the value of being able to copy off of your paper. And it's at this point this morning that I'm going to stop talking so that I can learn more from you. Thank you.